Hello, everybody, and welcome to Atheist Sunday School, your one-stop shop for everything Atheist Sunday and school. And boy, do we have a show for you today. Today we are covering Hebrews chapters 7 through 9 with Landon Noll.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on your time zone and latitude. From your astronomer guide to our favorite universe, it is great to be with you, reading all this Hebrew stuff. It's good to be in the Northern Hemisphere again. And we've got some biblical text to read, I guess.
Hold on. What exactly happened to our friendly neighborhood secular astronomer?
Well, that person is there too, but I figured your astronomer guide to our favorite universe was a new catchphrase. I'm thinking. However, I will point out that the bang Landon command doesn't actually say. Doesn't say the full thing, so that's why.
Oh, really?
You know what? It doesn't say anything. Isn't that cool? Why is it not doing
Listen.
that?
I don't know. See, sometimes Nightbot works and sometimes it doesn't.
No, we should just say Nightbot works in mysterious ways and call it that.
Yes.
There you go. I like that.
And hi J $sign as well. And other things. So
we're getting an echo.
Yes, we are getting an echo.
We're getting an echo from you, Landon.
Well, that's because the YouTube
It doesn't let you mute.
Stupid. It assumes that when you mute it and the show starts, that it wants to turn up the volume.
Right. That's right. Yeah. That that is something you have complained about in the past. Yeah.
Yes.
So all right, but yeah, good thing.
And hi.
You know what?
Hi.
That's a first.
VVDB. And Tomer. All right, good. Please consider clicking that like button. By the way, it does help the algorithm.
Yeah, Landon is our biggest advocate. Oh, look at that.
Oh yeah, there's Nightbot.
Yay.
Hey,
You're
it's
right,
alive.
It doesn't say anything about secular stuff.
You're right, it doesn't. But
You
the
win
thing
this
is,
round, Landon.
but Landon has said it a lot, so you know.
Yes, I am your friendly secular astronomer, but I'm also your astronomer guide to our favorite universe. I mean, it can be both. And as I say, also someone who
Landon, you need more titles.
Mm.
You need more titles. Let's just get you
More
some more titles.
epithets. Yeah, everyone could use more.
You could be the King of England and the King of Scotland.
That's right.
You could be. Yeah.
If I were, I would then abolish the monarchy and renounce the throne.
Wow.
Yeah, that would be a good plan.
You're a great guy.
I could sing the song that my Scottish relatives sang in Glasgow, or even the song that I heard Australians sing while King Big Ears was getting his body anointed by holy vegan oil. But it might demonetize this channel. So.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, well, that's definitely.
We'll have to go over that in the hangout after the show.
Yes.
I tell you what, if you become a patron and join the hangout, then you can hear me sing, as they did in Glasgow, the song to King Big Ears' event.
Okay, well now you're just driving people away, Landon.
Oh, no. Okay, so we're reading from. I have the King James Version of the Bible.
I have the English Standard Version of the Bible.
Landon?
I have the New American Standard Bible, the reference edition, A.J. Holman Company, edition of J.P. Leacock Company, Philadelphia, and New York, by the way. And it's copyrighted Lockman Foundation. It's not copyrighted God. So I guess the Lockman Foundation is the inspiration for this text I'm going to read.
I wonder, legally, in the United States justice system, does God exist? Like as a legal entity?
Legally, I don't think so. But you know what does exist legally? Ghosts.
Ghosts exist?
Yes. I think there have been actual court cases in which a ghost's testimony was used.
Yeah, we watched the same Mr. Ballin episode. Thanks.
That's
no.
awful.
Yeah. So I think the God legally does not exist, but ghosts do.
Yeah.
And watch out for them, by the way.
Right,
Yes, if you can see them, maybe get some help too.
Yeah.
Anyways,
So Tomer asked, why not NIV?
Oh yeah. So
well,
the thing is,
I
these were
also
just-
have the NIV Study Bible and the NRSV in the form of the Jewish Annotated New Testament alongside the New King James Version and Eerdman's commentary on the Bible.
and also from the Hermenia commentary series, we have from Harold W. Atridge the commentary and translation of Hebrews. We also have the Greek New Testament, a textual guide to the Greek New Testament. We also have Forgery and Counterforgery from Barterman. We have the Historical Jesus in Context by Amy Jill Levine and others. We have the text of the New Testament from Metzger and
The text
other
of the New Testament. Yeah.
from Allen and Allen.
Yes. We also have the Septuagint, Josephus, the Oxford Companion of the Bible, all there if we need them.
Yeah, there they are. And, you know,
On
it's...
the table, you can see, yes.
Yeah, a whole slew of books. And many of them are out of frame.
Yeah, one day I'll zoom out. I mean, we really can. It's just kind of awkward. Like, eventually you see the edges of the table and stuff.
Yeah.
But, like, you could zoom out more.
We could, but then it just
You
looked
could
weird.
then see how absolutely awful all the book collection is that you have right
Because
there.
there's a piles of books beyond. Just imagine the books you see in the shot. There's another order of magnitude beyond that.
Yeah.
And then, that's on the table.
Yeah.
But then in their library,
Yeah.
which has been a collection of books that
That's
have
huge.
been purchased off the Amazon wish list, it's even more extensive. You buy them books so you don't have to read them.
Yeah, exactly. We're making your lives easier here.
Yes.
All right, so
And, you know, this one's been keeping up a lot better than the last one.
oh yeah, the other one was just falling apart
So-
by
so-
nature.
So tell me about the items on the center stage here.
Well, we have a shitty platform that is falling apart, and
We have ball.
we have ball.
We also have our Behold can.
Yes, behold.
You should turn it better.
Behold!
Behold!
You can't see the
And we
ball
have birds.
still.
I mean,
Not
it's
facing
fine.
the camera.
Doesn't
And,
matter.
and then there's
Yeah,
We
but
never-
it
little
just says
critters in
BH.
front.
I mean, that's fine. It doesn't have to.
Yeah.
Well, I think we never use the New King James anymore.
Yeah, we can have a better stand for it. A more biblical stand
So Baal is taking his rightful place
There you go.
on top of the King
of
James.
on top of the scriptures.
Yeah.
And then there's little tiny critters in the very front at the
Yeah,
edge.
yeah. There's a lot of little birds.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're like not very well crafted wooden birds.
There's 3 little birds on his doorstep.
There's more up front here too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Either way, how about we hop into the readings? We're gonna continue on with Melchizedek stuff.
I don't know,
Yes.
Lawrence. People tune in just to hear about these
They
stupid,
might.
misshapen little birds.
They might.
I think that they're now receiving the deep lore of of our channel.
Yeah.
And they should all appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Let's please read.
Anyways, why don't I hop into chapter 7? For this Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God, who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him. All right, we're continuing with this Melchizedek theme. For those who don't remember from last time or previously in the Bible, Melchizedek is a priest who is mentioned in Genesis and is taken here as being a different priestly line
Yeah, 'cause he was
that
both-
is comprised only of Melchizedek and Jesus.
He was the important thing about Melchizedek was that he was both a priest and a king. So
Yes.
that was why he was given this association with Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's and then we were talking about Christology a lot before, and kind of the placement of Jesus and the order of Melchizedek, which was not, as we discussed, was not a real thing. It was not like an actual class of priests or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a theological title.
Right. So, to whom also Abraham gave a 10th part of all, first being by interpretation king of righteousness, and after that also king of Salem, which is king of peace.
Yeah.
So mine said 1/10 of all spoils. To whom Abraham also appointed a tenth of all spoils.
Yeah, I'm
First of
gonna
all.
let me look at this. This is from the Jewish one.
Now, it's interesting in my Bible in verse 2 that the spoils is in italics. So does that mean that this part of the text is doubtful?
Oh, okay. No. So, you said verse 2 is in italics?
Yes. Well, no, verse 2, it's when it says, to whom also Abraham appointed a tenth of all, that's in regular, the spoils, italics, was first of all.
Oh, okay. So
And by transmission of, now in italics, his name, king, and then king becomes non-italics again.
yeah, I mean, appointed a tithe of all kings, who is interpreted first as king of righteousness.
Yeah, Salem here is understood as peace from shalom.
This one. Hold on. This one is there is actually a textual variation here. So P46 and Codex B read pantos, so it's everything. Hold on. Yeah, so P46 and a Syrian manuscript add autoi, so to him or to it, for it. It's just a dative, probably because the relative pronoun ho, hoi, at the beginning of the verse had been lost. So that's why there are multiple variations of that. So it's not like this huge textual difference. It's that a word may have just been lost there.
Lawrence, Landon, go ahead.
I was saying, in some ways, this is talking about this basically saying, the verse with the italics reads, Abraham ripped off some stuff and gave a tenth of what he stole to Melchizedek, is the implication of verse 2, although I don't think that was the intent.
Well, this was, okay, so this, the account of his blessing back in Genesis 14, which records Abraham's encounter with him. Yeah, so, but this chapter in general is actually an exposition of Psalm 110:4. So I don't know if we can...
Well, Lawrence, I want you to look into this.
Okay.
Like, pull out your phone and look into this.
Oh, my phone.
Okay.
Yeah,
Salem,
and
understood as
Jerusalem.
Hebrew, peace, shalom, identified with Jerusalem. It may have originally been the name of a Canaanite god, Shalim.
Oh, my God.
What? Tell me about Shalim.
I haven't even...
That's why I want you to look into it.
All right, yeah, I guess I
Because
can
this
look into
is
it.
a very interesting footnote that I've never heard about before.
Yes, neither have
Shalom.
I.
Okay, yeah.
See, this is why you tune in to read this stuff, because your typical Sunday school would not stop and pause to see these sort of things.
Found in Ugaritic. Okay. Yeah, also identified as the deity representing Venus, or the evening star, and Shahar, the morning star. All right. Yeah, and his name derives from the Semitic root, which means whole, safe, and peace. Yeah. Okay. The thing is, this shouldn't even be too. At this point in time, that this is being written, that would not matter at all to them. They would just be thinking Jerusalem. Because the Canaanite gods were like the entire Canaanite pantheon. Nobody had believed in it for hundreds of years at the point that Hebrews was written. So that would not even be in their periphery.
All right.
And just also, I know you probably covered it earlier. While some doubt the historicity of Abraham as a person, is there solid evidence that Melchizedek actually lived, or is this a figure?
I mean, as far as we can tell, it seems like it's just a figure.
I don't think there's solid evidence that any character in Genesis lived. Besides maybe like vague
Genesis.
Egyptians.
Well, yeah, vague Egyptians, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, they had a pharaoh once upon a time. But yeah, no, I wouldn't. From Genesis, no, I wouldn't say that any of that. The thing is, some of the this may have been based on a real person, but I doubt it. Like, honestly, it just seems like a literary.
And look, most
invention.
Jews, I think, do not have the belief that Genesis is a literal accounting either.
Right.
And also, I don't think most
Ken-
Catholics either.
Ken Ham would be very disappointed in most Jews then, because
Yeah.
he believes literally everything, including the periods.
Yeah. Well, that's America's gift to the world. Huh?
Now he's Australian.
Oh no, that's Australia's gift to the world. Enjoy.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Please.
I'm going to continue. Without father, without mother, without descent, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like unto the Son of God,
Yes, so if they're-
abideth a priest continually.
Yeah, so if they're describing a real person who has no family, essentially, no, I'm going to go with that's not describing a real person.
Except for Genesis 14 and Psalm 110, verse 4. Scripture says nothing of Melchizedek. In the apocryphal 2nd Enoch, 23, 15 through 41, Melchizedek
that.
is miraculously born from his dead mother, is a priest from birth, is Noah's nephew, and is kept safe from the flood in order to be a priest to Noah's descendants. So,
And see, if those canon collectors had said, let's pick up that book, they could have added a bunch of interesting stuff. Nah.
yeah.
So I wasn't too sure.
But also, Melchizedek making Abraham the priest forever here. There are a couple of Talmudic things that support this. So it's not just a one-off thing here.
Okay, fair enough. So that would make sense then. But I did want to point this out. So you guys were talking in the chat about interpretations of the name Melchizedek, right? So I knew that the root Molech, right? I know that one means king, or MLK thing. I know that means king, but I wasn't sure about the other thing. There is a note here on this. So Melchizedek is in fact an ancient theophoric name, meaning my king is Zedek, where Zedek is the name of a Canaanite deity. This etymology was unknown in the Hellenistic period. So yeah, like I said, it wouldn't have even mattered.
Who's Zedek?
Well, that's what they're... the thing is, there is a paper here from Roy Rosenberg that's cited called The God Zedek.
Okay, hold on.
Let's see.
Roy Rosen, is it B-E-R-G or B-U-R-G?
B-E-R-G. Yeah, so like his contemporaries, our author interprets the name as King of Righteousness. Similarly, the place name Salem is derived... yeah, we just went over that part. And plus, this is in Hebrew anyway, so I can't read it. And Melchizedek becomes a king of peace. As the attestation of the etymologies in Philo and Josephus indicates, we are dealing at this point with standard Jewish interpretation. Yeah, so the actual big root of this stuff from earlier would not have even been in their periphery. No one was caring about the Canaanite gods in first century Judea. That wasn't really a problem for them. No reason to be writing polemics about them. But either way, yeah, this section is mostly an exposition on Psalm 110:4. What it looks like.
Yeah, okay. So it's a Phoenician god, Sedek, or
Okay.
Zedek.
Either way,
We'll have to look more into that later.
That is
That
interesting.
could be interesting.
yeah.
Anyways,
The thing is, yeah, because I was talking about how I wanted to kind of do a video on Melchizedek, right?
Yeah.
So that would definitely be included in that.
absolutely. Now consider how great this man was, unto whom even the patriarch Abraham gave the 10th of the spoils. And verily, they that are of the sons of Levi, who receive the office of the priesthood, have a commandment to take tithes of the people according to the law, that is, of their brethren, though they come out of the loins of Abraham. But he whose descent is not counted from them received tithes of Abraham, and blessed him that had the promises. And without all contradiction, the less is blessed of the better. Anything to say about those verses?
No. I think that with the connections we've made earlier, they seem pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah. Here about Levi. Melchizedek is not a descendant of Abraham and thus not a member of the priestly tribe of Levi. Israelite priests all derive from the tribe of Levi, but at some point a distinct priestly class emerges so that priests and Levites
because he
are
had
treated
no-
as separate groups.
Yeah, and he had no lineage. He had no genetic lineage, which is actually, hold on here. It's noted here. In describing him, Hebrews again alludes to elements of the citation from Genesis and its initial interpretation, the fact that Melchizedek had no genealogical connection with the Levites, and that he has tithed and blessed Abraham. In fact,
Isn't that the whole point? Is that
Yes.
Abraham has the priesthood conferred onto him by Melchizedek, and by virtue of that, descendants of Abraham have inherited the priesthood, right? That, like, Melchizedek is not like a priest by virtue of being a Levite. Levites are priests by virtue of Melchizedek's intervention earlier in time.
Well, I mean, they are essentially given that power by, well, it was from, supposedly, right, from God himself, because that was their portion. Their portion was, at least for the Levites, their portion was to be the priests. So that was their interpretation in that one. At least once we get to Leviticus.
But then what's the significance of Melchizedek conferring priesthood to Abraham?
I thought it said that he was getting it from.
Oh, I thought he was giving it to.
Was it? Did I just mishear it?
I think one of them.
Isn't it basically that Abraham took some stuff from people? He found stuff before they lost it, and then he's giving a tenth to Melchizedek. Isn't that there's all this tithe stuff? Or
I mean, that was the understanding that I had. That part of it was going to Melchizedek.
No.
No?
Right at the beginning, they talk about Melchizedek, priest of the Most High God, met Abraham as he was returning from.
And blessed
defeating
him. Yeah,
kings and blessed him.
Yeah, you're right.
So, like, he had the priesthood before
you're right.
meeting Abraham. Anyways.
Well,
Weird.
so it is by nature.
Mhm.
I would say definitely by nature.
Okay. And
so verse.
yeah.
Yes.
And here men that die receive tithes, but there he receiveth them, of whom it is witness that he liveth. And as I may so say, nice line, Levi also, who receiveth tithes,
Thank you
paid
for
tithes in Abraham.
Speaking of tithes, thank you. What is it, Juju dude? Thank you, very much appreciated for the 5. The UK sends more King Charles beer tokens. You know what? That's pretty good.
That
Thank
is
you.
an accurate depiction
Yeah.
of what that is.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I've always wondered what that symbol is. Obviously,
And hello,
it's beer token.
hello, David. It's nice to see people from Canada joining us as well.
Oh, David, haven't seen David's name in a long time.
Oh, yeah.
How you doing, David? Hey, you know what you should do? You should join that Discord.
Wow.
Yeah, join the Discord.
I've been trying to get Steve to join it, but he's like, cool, you have a Discord, and then just doesn't join it like a fucking asshole.
And Glass in there. So anyway, yes. So back to reading the Bible.
Yes, let us continue on doing that. For he was yet in the loins of his father when Melchizedek met him. If, therefore, perfection were by the Levitical priesthood, for under it the people received the law, what further need was there that another priest should rise after the order of Melchizedek and not be called after the order of Aaron? For the
So a point here in my text, on verse 11, for on the basis of it, the people receive the law.
Yo, Klaus.
Is it parenthetical?
My God.
Klaus, with the $5.99, huge. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. International Hamburger Day. Excellent.
Is it?
It is now.
Okay, well, if it is, then I'm going to make
So
it some
thank you,
hamburgers.
Klaus, as well. for that 5.99 euros, which the Farming of the Kingdom could have used, but they didn't. Okay. So on verse 11, the for on the basis of it, the people receive the law. In my Bible is put in parentheses.
Well, let's see here.
I'm wondering why they did that.
There are a couple things for that, actually. So it looks like the first part of that. So for based upon it, the people has been given a law. So literally upon it, the case of the pronoun varies. So it could be a little bit different. So it could be upon it, or either way, it would be, the meaning would be upon it. In any case, honestly, because it's autoi, which is the dative, and autein, which is the accusative. But in this case, it could be the meaning could be exactly the same. But then the next part, the people has been given a law. Many later witnesses read the pluperfect had been given a law. So it's just a different tense here. So I'm gonna have to check to see if that's the perfect. But
so it may be implying that the tenses of these things is in question, or is this some priest who added in this text someplace, some scribe added added this text in and it got injected in there? Is it?
Well, it's not. It's not exactly a big difference. It's okay. So there's the perfect tense, and then the pluperfect tense, which is past of past, essentially. So the thing is, they just changed the tense to make it more compatible with the next verse. But the thing is, the perfect tense is far better attested, it looks like. So it's just a change of tense. It's not really a huge theological difference or anything.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. For the priesthood being changed, there is made of necessity a change also of the law. For he of whom these things are spoken pertaineth to another tribe, which no man gave attendance at the altar. For it is evident that our Lord sprang out of Judah, of which tribe Moses spake nothing concerning priesthood. And it is yet far more evident, for that after the similitude of Melchizedek there ariseth another priest, who is made not after the law of a carnal commandment, but after the power of an endless life. For he testifieth, Thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek.
Yeah, and that's quoted quite a lot. So the section here, of course, being coming out of Judah, probably a reference to being a descendant of David, because, of course, do you remember that, the shoot of Jesse and all that stuff back when it came to, back in Jesus' birth story and in David's, I believe. So our author no doubt refers to the widely accepted Davidic descent of Jesus. He does not, however, explicitly cite David as the Judite from whom Christ descended, nor does he develop any of his Christological reflections on the basis of a Davidic relationship, probably because in order to maintain the connection from or between Melchizedek and Jesus, having no lineage yourself and having that kind of miraculous birth is probably the thing you want to get across.
Hold on. We're going to need this refresher because this is getting brought up a lot. So Psalm 110.
Yeah.
The Lord said unto my Lord, Sit thou at my right hand until I make thine enemies thy footstool. The Lord shall send the rod of thy strength out of Zion. Rule thou in the midst of thine enemies. Thy people shall be willing in the day of thy power, in the beauties of holiness. From the womb of the morning thou hast the dew of thy youth. The Lord hath sworn and will not repent. Thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. The Lord at thy right hand shall strike through kings in the day of his wrath. He shall judge among the heathen. He shall fill the places with the dead bodies. He shall wound the heads over many countries. He shall drink of the brook in the way. Therefore shall he lift up the head. Okay, that's the whole psalm.
So that Psalm 10, Psalm 110 verse 4 is used both in verse 17, and later on, as we'll see in verse 21.
Yes. For there is verily a disannulling of the command. That's a good word. Disannulling. Okay, for there is verily a disannulling of the commandment going before for the weakness and unprofitableness thereof.
Okay.
For the
And in that case, it says, my verse, it says, for the law made nothing perfect, and that's also in parentheses.
Let me check this for a second. For the law made nothing perfect. Let's see. Are we talking about, wait, which verse?
19?
19.
The law made nothing perfect. Although
brought nothing to perfection.
Hebrews
Yeah, that's
sees the Torah as given by God, it cannot be perfect because it is a human institution that exists in the material realm. Although the Tanakh rarely uses language of perfection for Torah, Psalm 119 idealizes Torah
because it
as
did.
godlike. Jewish mystical traditions describe Torah as the pre-existent blueprint for creation, e.g. Genesis, Rabbah, and the Zohar.
Yeah, essentially it didn't work, and finally they came to the realization that the law didn't work. So that was their new jumping off point for a new covenant.
Do you think that the pre-existent Jesus thing is just like a personification of the pre-existent Torah thing?
Would it be? Not necessarily. I could see a few interpretations. It wouldn't be pre-existent Jesus, by the way. It would be pre-existent Christ.
Okay, sure.
But yeah, maybe not pre-existent Torah, but maybe the thing is, it shares a lot of similarities with wisdom, right?
There's several pre-existent things.
That is true. That is true.
And people act like God is like the only thing to which that qualifier can be applied. That is not the case, right? Because wisdom's there, the Torah's there. I think there's also some tablets that aren't the Torah that are brought up, the heavenly tablets.
Yeah, those are in apocryphal literature, though.
That is true.
I don't think they were actually. I don't think.
I think there is a reference to the heavenly tablets in.
I think
in
it's
the
in
Old
Enoch.
Testament.
But I must say that there's a whole bunch of young Earth creationists who would really find it abhorrent that the Torah was not somehow perfect because it's supposed to be God's, copyright God and God's perfect text. So it's interesting that now in here, what we're seeing, I think, is this sort of New Testament style polemic against the Old Testament, saying, yeah, there's Old Testament. We'll quote it when we like it, but it kind of is broken, and we're giving you a New Testament. And I think that's sort of the theme of this whole Testament stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
In my opinion.
Yeah, it's it didn't work before, so now we gotta come up with a new method of doing this.
Yeah, that was Enoch.
Yeah, exactly.
And heavenly tablets, so cool.
Shout out to Enoch.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Let's disannul. Shout out to Enoch.
Oh my God.
Oh jeez.
It's a good word.
Yeah, it is. It is a good word. Anyways, there's okay. A disannulling, right? For the law made nothing perfect, but the bringing in of a better hope did, by which we draw nigh unto God, and inasmuch as not without an oath he was made priest. For those priests were made without an oath, but this with an oath by him that said unto him, the Lord sware and will not repent. Thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. So, I want to bring up here that they continually reference this psalm, and they act as if this is like a reference to Christ. But the psalm itself is a reference to the king.
Yeah.
Like, it is not like this heavenly Messiah character that is being referenced in the psalm. They're just appropriating it for their own purposes.
Yeah.
As is tradition.
I will put out in my text, the entire verse 21 is put in parentheses.
Oh,
Really?
yes,
So
mine
there's
too.
Part of it.
Mine is also in parentheses. Lawrence, what's going on here?
The King James has parentheses?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, imagine. So let's see, verse 21. Yes. Well, there's a portion of this that they're unsure about. So yeah. But he has become a priest with the swearing of an oath through the one who says to him, "The Lord has sworn, and he will not change his mind. You are a priest forever." Just you are a priest forever, because the section. In the order of Melchizedek, that was, or after the order of Melchizedek, that was probably in addition, probably a later edition. It was taken over from a different verse. So that last section where the quote is like exactly the same as before, probably just said, "You are a priest forever." Yeah. So, but the section before.
The New Jewish Publication Society of America translates Psalm 110 as, "You are a priest forever, a rightful king by my decree."
So they are translating the name then.
Yes, they're translating the name Melchizedek.
Interesting. Okay.
But I could imagine that within certain Jewish communities, that would be like code for Melchizedek.
Well, it could be, yeah. That's
Okay,
true. But
I mean, look
I
at
do-
like
I
these
have a
weird
question.
Kabbalistic cults that are in Israel. They're like all over the place, and they all have like these secret code messages, ways of reading the Bible.
Oh, yeah, that is true. But also one thing. By the way, this shirt that I'm wearing, this is actually created by Atheist Underground.
Oh,
Yeah,
wonderful.
it's Rob.
Oh, hey, Rob.
Yes, hello, Rob. Good to see you. Hey, listen, Rob, if you have a link where people can buy these shirts anywhere, you can feel free to drop it.
It's a good shirt.
Yeah, it's a great shirt. People love it.
It has not fallen apart after Lawrence has worn it for many years.
That is
And
true.
He's worn
Yes.
it multiple days in a row.
It has survived many biblical text readings. So back to think about the verse 21 being in full parentheses. Oftentimes in this particular book, there is some doubt as to the text, or perhaps when the entire verse is in there, there's some doubt as whether the actual verse was in original text. But in this case, it seems like it's more a matter of the whole phrasing is in doubt, I guess, of verse 21.
Yeah, it looks like there's just hold on. There is actually a section here that is sometimes just left out in that verse. So it doesn't look like it's the whole verse is the issue. Forever, the section there. So eston iona, following the words eston iona, many manuscripts have the additional words after the order of Melchizedek. It is possible that these words were original, but were accidentally omitted when a copyist's eye jumped from the kata at the beginning of the words to the kata at the beginning of verse 22. But it is more likely that they are not original, but were added from verse 17. But then the Codex Sinaiticus, it looks like, omits the word forever, or the words for forever. Some witnesses add after the order of Melchizedek, under the influence of the other citation of the psalm. Yeah.
All right. By so much was Jesus made a surety of a better testament. And they truly were many priests, because they were not suffered to continue by reason of death, but this man, because he continueth ever, not forever, just ever.
Ever.
He continueth ever, hath an unchangeable priesthood. Wherefore he is able also to save them to the uttermost that come unto God by him, seeing he ever liveth to make intercession for them. For such a high priest became us, who is holy, harmless, undefiled, separate from sinners, and made higher than the heavens, who needeth not daily, as those high priests, to offer up sacrifice, first for his own sins, then for the people's. For this he did once, when he offered up himself. For the law maketh men high priests which have infirmity, but the word of the oath, which was since the law, maketh the Son, who is consecrated forevermore. Here, probably because word is logos.
Yeah.
And I want to point out that the entire purpose of this chapter, that's the end of chapter 7, by the way. If you're enjoying the stream so far, give us a like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, family, and neighbors, right? But I want to point out that this whole chapter has essentially been the argument that there are two separate priestly lineages, kind of like in the Old Testament, how there was a separate priestly lineage clash which occurred. And he's just instantiating that this priesthood of Melchizedek was in fact conferred upon Christ, which, it's just stated that this is the case without any real argument. And the argument that actually this Melchizedek priesthood is superior in all ways to this lowly Levitical Aaronid priesthood, right?
And I'll point out that my verse 22 says so much the more also Jesus became a guarantee of a better covenant. So it's not just a testament, but a covenant. They're really going after the whole Israel covenant sort of thing. They're saying that whole thing is being replaced, not just the text.
Mm-hmm. I can only imagine that there were people at the time who were saying, look, this Jesus fella, his genealogy doesn't make sense. It doesn't line up for him to be a Messiah figure. He is not of the Davidic lineage, if you take the Heavenly Father thing seriously. He is not of an Aaronid lineage at any point. So there's no qualifier for him to be an anointed one. And so they're saying, actually, there's
right, he was actually given to it by Melchizedek.
Yeah, this secret otherworldly lineage that is so much better than the...
Yeah, they took a lot of stuff to give Jesus some oomph. So interestingly, the part where it says that he offers himself up there, of course, for us, reading and knowing about Jesus, it's actually, to us, we didn't even notice this, but this is the first time in the text that the sacrificial act of the heavenly high priest is explicitly mentioned. The notion that his death was an act of self-sacrifice for sins is certainly traditional. We've been over that plenty times. Although once we, I don't know if we went over this during the show when we went over the suffering servant and the servant songs, or if I covered in the video on the servant songs. I definitely covered it in that video, but I don't remember if we did it on the show. But there's also this whole thing. Well, are you doing it on behalf of someone else, or are you doing it yourself? There's this whole it may seem, what's the word I'm looking for? It may seem like it's semantics, but in terms of how this salvific act is supposed to be, it's not just this small issue. But either way, the high priestly sacrificial action of Christ will now be explored through an elaboration of imagery of the Yom Kippur ritual, to which the author alludes with an emphatic once for all. Thus, the central theme of the next 3 chapters is sounded.
And before we hop into the next chapter, there's just one footnote here. Because God, this is on the last verse of the previous chapter, because God speaks the oath through David in the psalm that is being referenced here, it comes later than the law, the Sinaitic covenant. God's oath appointing Melchizedek takes precedence over the eternal covenant God made with Aaron in Exodus, not because the author regards the authority of Psalms as greater than the Torah, but because the divine words preserved in the Psalms supersede the words spoken in Genesis and Exodus temporally. If God said or did something revising an earlier action, the latter act supersedes the former. The logic of Hebrews is as follows. David wrote Psalm 95, and since David lives after Aaron, the eternal ordination of Melchizedek supersedes Aaron's. The practice of biblical interpretation from the rabbis to the present ascribes the highest scriptural authority to Torah. Other parts of the Tanakh are used in the service of interpreting the Torah, not the other way around. The prioritizing of Torah is evident in Jewish liturgical practice, where the Haftarah readings serve to support or illuminate the weekly Torah readings. So these are completely different prioritizations. I brought up this issue in my video on the Quran, that there's the system of abrogation within some schools of Islamic thought. And it looks like this is what's being presented in Hebrews.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because abrogation is a horrible system because you can just claim that anything was written after anything else because you're not actually basing anything off of historical interpretations. You're just textually making random arguments by...
The thing is, in some cases, I'm sure it would make sense, but outside of those few cases, it just does kind of sound like, well, how do I support my position that I already hold?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Anyways, why don't you hop into chapter 8?
All right, we'll do. Chapter 8 of Hebrews. Now, the point in what we are saying is this. We have such a high priest, one who is seated at the right hand of the throne of the majesty in heaven, a minister in the holy places, in the true tent that the Lord set up, not man. For every high priest is appointed to offer gifts and sacrifices. Thus it is necessary for this priest also to have something to offer.
So
this is interesting. So
I want
not
to
man,
point out,
which is very interesting because the title Son of Man specifically means human.
right.
And there was an importance to Jesus being a human because otherwise his sacrificial, otherwise being a sacrifice wouldn't work. So like there's nothing to sacrifice there. Nothing has been like, lost in the same sense. The same thing that sinned is not the same thing that sacrificed. So it's not like, so it's not the full thing. So what is, is it really that bad?
What's
The
wrong?
buzzing? Yeah, because we got a comment about it. So usually on stream, we can probably turn that down a little bit.
Turn Landon down a little bit.
It's bad.
So-
What?
Yeah, usually on the stream, so it must be a volume thing. But usually on the stream, we hear a buzzing sound. But
when we have a guest.
yeah, when we have a guest. But when we've noted this before the show actually, that when we're actually live, it can barely be heard on the actual stream. So it might just be a volume thing. So hopefully, because we turned it down a little bit there, and hopefully it should be better. But I'm glad that not many people at least were hearing it before.
All right. So the sanctuary here in verse 2.
It makes sense. That actually makes sense, David. If it's just high frequency and some people can't hear it.
Wow. That's a good point.
That is a good point. So yeah, I'm gonna continue on. But either way,
No. The sanctuary in verse 2. Hebrews never uses the typical Greek words for the temple, such as naos or hieron. The idea that the earthly temple has a heavenly counterpart may perhaps be found in the Tanakh, e.g. Isaiah 6, and becomes common in early Jewish writings. A bunch are listed. God's instructions for the tabernacle suggest some form of divine ideal. The description of its construction in Exodus suggests the material form. Now, we'll get into this later, but Philo makes an argument in some place that is annotated in a way that I don't know what they're referring to.
So it looks okay. So here's the commentary from Hermenia. It looks like although some commentators have argued that the phrase sanctuary and tabernacle is to be construed as a Hendiades, it is more likely that it refers to the division of the heavenly tabernacle, the distinction between the inner sanctuary labeled Tahagia, so yeah, that's where you get, like Hagia Sophia, for example, and the tabernacle as a whole labeled Hiskene.
Right. The inner
has
sanctuary, the high
precedence.
priest briefly enters with the blood of atonement once a year.
Yeah, it has precedence in the Septuagint. Hebrews generally observes the distinction, reserving Tahagia for the inner sanctuary that the earthly high priest and their heavenly counterpart enter. And yeah, we can cross-reference multiple places in chapter 9 that we will get to, while using skene for the entire tabernacle, either earthly or heavenly. The only exception to this distinction is the detailed description of the earthly tabernacle, the whole of which is designated Tahagion, or Tohagion in 9:1. In the same context, the inner tabernacle is named Hagia, and the outer Hagion. So, yeah, it would be Holy of Holies, essentially, which is the same term that was used, in in the Old Testament. The term skene is there used for each section and not for the whole, but the designations first and second prevent any ambiguity.
Okay, so now not only has Hebrews just attacked the Levitical priesthood and the Aaronid priesthood by instantiating the priesthood of Melchizedek, but now it is attacking the temple, right?
Hey, boy, this epistles of the Hebrews is really winning friends and influencing people.
It's not really attacking.
Well, it's instantiating the unimportance of the earthly thing, right? It's stressing the.
It's stressing a heavenly
It
one.
outright
far more than
says, and of the true tabernacle, implying that there is a not true tabernacle or a lesser tabernacle.
Sure. That's fair. Yeah, now if he were, this is referring to the priest, now if he were on earth, he would not be a priest at all, since there are priests who offer gifts according to the law. They serve a copy and shallow of the heavenly things.
Shallow? Mine says shadow.
Sorry, shadow. Yeah, I read that wrong. And shadow of the heavenly things. For when Moses was about to erect the tent, he was instructed by God, saying, "See that you make everything according to the pattern that was shown you on the mountain." But as it is, Christ has obtained a ministry that is as much more excellent than the old, as the covenant he mediates is better, since it is enacted on better promises. So it's literally like, it's, once again, we're going to
a supersessionist theology. Not only is Jesus the mediator of a better covenant, but the first covenant was faulty because it failed to create the perfect relationship between humanity and God.
That explains everything.
But I want to point out here that now they have not only attacked the priesthood, but the temple and the covenant and the law.
Yeah, they were doing that last chapter.
Right. Yeah. So they're really going after everything that the Jews would support, every single thing, right?
Yeah, essentially, and just saying like ours is just a better version of what you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty consistent theme, for example, by Paul and some of his missives.
Yeah, true.
Now, yeah, but the parallel here is actually very Greek. It's outright the cave analogy from Republic.
True.
Right? Is just like, yeah, they're looking at these shadows that are cast, and that's all they get. So very Greek.
Yeah. Oh, there's a whole section about the heavenly temple and the significance of it. It is pretty long, but yeah, there are connections here with Philo, for example, Plato. Yeah. So, a whole bunch here. So the notion that the earthly temple is constructed according to a heavenly pattern is an ancient Semitic one. It underlies the account of the construction of the desert tabernacle and the Jerusalem temple, and is probably involved in poetic texts of the Old Testament that speak of heaven itself as God's temple. Whether those texts presume a heavenly archetype of the earthly temple is unclear. Such an understanding of a heavenly temple is more clearly expressed in Jewish literature, both apocalyptic and sapiential, of the Persian and Hellenistic eras. In the In the heavenly journey of First Enoch, the visionary sees a heavenly house, or rather a complex of two houses, an outer and inner. In the latter, he finds the throne on which the great glory is seated. Although not explicitly described as a temple, the structure of this heavenly dwelling corresponds to that of the earthly temple, and the environment of the divine throne is traditionally the locus of heavenly worship. A similar but even more explicit scheme is described in the Testament of Levi. There, the patriarch, during a heavenly journey in which he obtains the priesthood, learns of the distinction between the lower heavens, where various angels are arranged, and the uppermost heaven, the Holy of Holies, where the throne of God, styled the great glory, is situated, and the angelic priests conduct their liturgy. So this is very... We've had texts where there have been many heavens, where as they go up, they get closer and closer to God.
Yes,
but
and it is attested to in the Talmud as well.
Sure, yeah. And the thing is, sources differ on these. Sometimes there's 7, sometimes there's 10.
Yes.
But it hasn't been, I don't think, in at least the apocryphal text that we've read, it wasn't, very often described as a temple itself.
No, not typically, though.
But now the way that they're using
Jubilees, right?
It may have been
Jubilees might have had something like that, where they were the equivalent angels, right?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. So that would be like the closest thing that I could think of. But other than that, no.
Yeah. So there are a whole bunch of parallels here through through the history of Judaism that are pointed out here, and through Greek influence as well. So whole bunch of them. But I guess I'm going to continue.
Cool beans.
Yeah. So verse 7. For if that first covenant had been faultless, there would have been no occasion to look for a second. For he finds fault with them when he says, Behold!
Behold!
Behold.
Wow.
You broke your speaker.
Destroyed the mic.
Yeah.
Destroyed the mic. Yep.
Well done.
The days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will establish a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not like the covenant that I made with their fathers on the day when I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt. For they did not continue in my covenant, and so I showed no concern for them, declares the Lord. First of all, that's a lie.
Now, hold on a minute there, Mr. Lawrence, man. Now, Jeremiah 31 through 34. There
Yes, yeah,
are
that is
notable
the quotation.
differences between the Masoretic text and the Septuagint.
Classic.
Most significant in 31:32, the Septuagint has, I had no concern for them, while the Masoretic text has, I was their husband. In its original context, Jeremiah was suggesting that the Torah would be renewed after the Babylonian exile by being implanted in people's hearts or minds so that they could instinctively observe it. Therefore, they would no longer sin, and so there would not be another exile. Remembering their sins no more, the atonement in the new covenant is permanent, is essential to the argument. So that's what they're saying here.
Well, here's the thing. That is an interesting change there, but the part that I was referring to as being the lie. First of all, he says here, yeah, they did not continue my covenant, and I showed no concern for them. How many times in the Bible, even when they didn't listen to God, did he always go or did the text always say, and God remembered his people? He showed concern for them no matter what they were doing in the Old Testament.
Over and over again.
Sometimes he would stop, but then he would come back to it.
Even when Elijah and Elisha are the only really righteous people left, even then is considering them. So no, yeah, it's just outright incorrect in terms of the Bible.
Right.
But then again, a lot of the New Testament has been outright incorrect in terms of the Old Testament.
Yeah.
It's almost as if these people didn't read it and were only told about it by someone.
What? People following biblical text but not actually reading it?
Yeah.
You amaze me.
Unfortunately, that does happen.
Mm-hmm.
All right, continuing on here. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, declares the Lord.
Now, the term for covenant does not appear in this verse. The Greek reads new one and first one, but the author
it's
is
implied, yeah.
clearly referring to the covenant in Jeremiah 8 through 12, which refers to the Mosaic covenant. Hebrews 9:16 through 18 offers an interpretation of the word covenant. Greek diatheke, Hebrew typically berit, but diatheke has connotations berit does not have. For the idea that the new covenant renders the old obsolete, see 2 Corinthians 3:7 through 14. Jewish sources rarely develop Jeremiah's new covenant, since the first one is eternal. See Sirach 17:12, 4th Ezra or 2nd Esdras 9:36 to 37, 2nd Baruch, Philo, Josephus, a bunch of things. Rather, they concentrate on the perfect obedience to the Torah, the original covenant. So these are dramatically different viewpoints as ever.
All right, I'm going to continue with the verse. So this is what the Lord will say. I will put my laws into their minds and write them on their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And so is this where...
Oh, isn't that nice?
Is this where apologists get their whole, like, oh, you have the laws of God inscribed on your heart thing?
Yep.
If it is, it specifically says the house of Israel.
Yes, it does. But as we've seen in the previous epistles, the house of Israel is the descendants of Abraham.
Yeah.
And the Christian community, the body of Christ, is the spiritual
Right.
descendant of Abraham,
That
which
is
is
true.
the more legitimate version than actual genetically descended from Abraham.
Right.
descendants of Abraham.
Because it's spiritually generated, and of course you get to pick the best of the stuff and leave the other bits behind, right?
Yep.
You don't have to deal with the two materials in the clothing and mother's milk stuff and so forth. You can keep very unkosher kitchens and all that good stuff, as well as claim all the. So you get all the good bits, and you leave behind the bits that are inconvenient.
You know,
That's
you
a very
could
biblical
even
thing.
continue your European pagan practices and worship statues in the Vatican.
But you got to make sure you do it right.
Yep.
Because if you don't, then it'd be blasphemy.
As long as those statues or icons have holy water sprinkled on them, and some other person who's slightly more spiritual than you says that's holy, then it's just fine.
Yep. And then they fill the room with slightly psychoactive incenses in order to, you remember the incense that we use for the demon summoning?
Oh,
Yeah. That is true.
Slightly psychoactive. It just kind of dulls your senses a little bit when there's a lot of it.
But that anointing thing continues to this day. I mean, King Big Ears got vegan oil, dumped on him. He had to strip down naked and surround himself with screens where you couldn't see him. But he was naked before the priest of Archbishop of Canterbury and got anointed with vegan oil. So some traditions they do keep. Occasionally.
Well, what do you
Kind of,
think
sort of.
Melchizedek would think of that? All right, continuing on. And they shall not teach each one his neighbor and each one his brother, saying, know the Lord, for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest. For I will be merciful toward their iniquities, and I will remember their sins no more. And speaking of a new covenant, he makes the first one obsolete. And what is becoming obsolete and growing old is ready to vanish away.
There's this guy. It's a guy who appears earlier in the Bible. You may have heard of him. His name's Jesus.
Jesus?
Jesus.
What about Jesus?
Doesn't he say outright that till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled.
Yep.
In Matthew 5:17.
That is a thing that he says. Yep.
And so
I don't know why you're questioning the Lord.
Look, the Christian argument is that Jesus does fulfill the law. I know that's the response to it, but Jesus has like a promise of eventually fulfilling the law. He has not satisfied the requirements of the Messiah. He has not like been there during the Day of Atonement at this point in time, right, temporally, even if you accept all of the other Christian stuff. So, no, all of the things in the law have not been fulfilled yet. And so even if it were the case that this new covenant would replace the previous one, it would not come into place until after the previous one had already been fulfilled, which it hasn't yet.
Right. Well, the thing is, some people do accept that it had been fulfilled and we already had an apocalypse. But not an apocalypse, but
then,
what's it called?
Then we were left behind.
Yeah. No, but they think that there was already the second coming and we're already living in the new age. I got into it with some people outside. Was it Pride Fest a few years ago?
Oh,
yeah, they were out there and we got into it.
So what they're saying is that they're just as bad as anyone else because they weren't raptured. Actually, no one was raptured, which is to say God has abandoned us.
Okay, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Are you sure? Is it because I don't know. Maybe you never know. Sometimes when we hear static, people float away. You never know.
Mm.
Oh, speaking of, do you hear something?
I do hear something.
Oh no, this is so new to me.
Behold, I am your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and I want to let all you heathens and sinners know that I support this wonderful episode of Atheist Sunday School. Lawrence and Reuben try their very best to bring you the true glory of the Bible, and they need your help. They have provided links to their Patreon page and other social media just for you. Once again, my name is Jesus Christ, and this is Milwaukee Atheists. The Lord is with them. God bless.
Oh my God, Jesus Christ. Thanks for showing up, man. Listen, we were talking about your boy who wrote Hebrews, and I don't think he fully understands your message. Now, before we, of course, who we are the ones that are truly trying to understand your message, Jesus, before we get to your message, I do want to ask why, once again, you have left me alone. You have made both Reuben and Landon ascend. They're both gone. Now, yeah, perhaps it is the rapture. Now, maybe they'll come back with some special revelation. But until that day comes, I will be here. Very, very good. I will be here reading the Bible. But either way, no. So this next chapter here, this is the cult. This is how it's titled in Hermenia. The Cult of the Old Covenant. Now, I don't disagree with that. I also wouldn't disagree with the cult of the new covenant, but either way, yeah, the play on the antithesis of the antitheses that are found in the preceding paragraphs now begins. This pericope focuses on the negative pole of these oppositions and relates the old with the earthly, multiple, and external. And look, both of you have come back from your ascension.
Yes, we have. And, I want to ask chat something. And be honest. Have you shared the stream with your friends, family,
Yes.
and
Yes.
neighbors?
Had to be all of them. If it's not all of them,
No.
get out of here.
Tomer has not shared the
Oh
stream
my God,
with his friends.
Tomer.
Two out of three, but I must say, on the other hand, during our disappearance and divine intervention that you just occurred, it was, I thank them for having a more convenient covenant that doesn't require us to do all those Levitical thingies.
True.
It makes life a little bit easier. So I get, if that happens, I get a pass on 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
So
thank you, Ellis, for the $9.99.
I do want to say yes. Thank you, Alice, for the $9.99. Very much appreciated. But also, we had one from Juju Dude as well during your ascension. Come on, he's dead in a ditch.
I have arisen 3 seconds later.
Yeah, there you are.
Much faster, more impressive.
As
Everyone
was never
be impressed.
prophesied.
Yeah.
It could have been. Either way. So thank you so much to both of you guys for the donut, for the big donos. Appreciate it. But yeah, this section we're gonna learn about the cult of the old covenant, and we're gonna learn more about how it sucks in comparison to the new one.
You know what?
Yes.
I've always
So you can kind of see now, even though Christians will, unless they're like actually like good with theology, they probably wouldn't actually tell you, oh, the reason that we don't care so much about the Old Testament is because of this thing that it says in Hebrews. They're just going to go, oh, that's in the Old Testament.
well.
So this
it
might
depends.
actually be like theological grounds for something like that. So
Well-
it's interesting that it's not brought up that often in like conversations with
I
regular
have
Christians.
several books on dispensationalism.
Sure.
You might want to read. But no, that is like a standard Christian thing, is that they don't celebrate Passover or Hanukkah, right? They don't do it because
Those are the Old Covenant.
that's the old covenant, and they have been replaced. Basically, they think
do
that
something along those dates, they go and say, "Isn't it nice that we don't have to do this stuff?" Right, type of thing. But I must say, there are some nice things with the food, particularly in some of those ceremonies that are actually quite yummy. I'm a fan of some of the meals that are
Yes.
served there. But in this thing coming up, the focus of the titles of this chapter talk about the blood of the new covenant superior to the old, and that sort of thing. So we shall see.
Guess you made a bit over minimum wage on this episode. You know what? Minimum wage here is $7.25.
$7.25.
Yeah, so we made well over that.
Yes.
Yo, congrats, guys.
And it's very much appreciated for these donations. Definitely. Thank you. So, shall I begin?
Yep, absolutely. Go ahead, Landon.
Chapter 9. Now, even the first covenant had regulations of divine worship and the earthly sanctuary.
So the description here is going to be based on God's instructions for the building of the tabernacle, the tented sanctuary.
Oh, man, I
which
hated that
precedes-
part.
Yep, in which dwelt God's presence. So we're about to get into the tent.
Yeah. For there was a tabernacle prepared, the outer one, in which there were a lampstand and a table and the sacred bread. This is called the holy place.
Yes, the tabernacle is built under Moses. The lampstand is made of hammered gold and placed at the south side of the holy place.
Yeah, I'm getting PTSD.
It had 7 lamps that were kept burning every night. The table and the consecrated bread, made of acacia wood overlaid with gold, it stood on the north side of the holy place. On it were 12 loaves of bread arranged in 2 rows of 6.
And behind the second veil, there was a tabernacle which was called the Holy of Holies.
Yeah, that would be the innermost part of the temple that contained the Ark of the Covenant.
And I want to give a little bit of detail here. The first tent is the outer sanctuary. The Tanakh is not always consistent in its terminology about this. The tabernacle was comprised of 2 parts. An outer sanctuary, sometimes known as the holy place, plural in Greek, places, and an inner one known as the Holy of Holies. The outer sanctuary contained the objects mentioned: lampstand, bread of the presence set upon the table. Its name derives from its being located in the sanctuary wherein lies God's presence. The Mishnah contains a lengthy description of the preparation, placement, and presentation of this holy bread.
Speaking of that holy bread, the presentation of it, another minor anomaly in Hebrews list is the mention of the showbread as a separate item from the table. The table in Exodus is generally designated simply as just the table, it looks like. Just the table. He trapeza. That's what it is in Greek. He trapeza. Although it is once called the table of the presentation, a term that later becomes common. The reference to the presentation of the breads is another later phrase, an inversion of the common showbreads, which may also be part of an underlying traditional formulation. So looks like it went through a few changes. Whoop-de-doo.
And Landon, I will have commentary leading up to this, but once you get done with verse 10, I have a lengthy section from Eerdmans that I want to read. So
Okay. So I'm now on verse 4, and I will definitely be sure to pause after verse 10, which is the end of this paragraph, according to my text. So, having a golden altar of incense and the Ark of the Covenant covered in on all sides with gold, which was a golden jar holding the manna, and Aaron's rod, which budded, and the tables of the covenant. And above it were cherubim of glory, overshadowing the mercy seat. But of these things we cannot now speak in detail. Why not?
Because it was destroyed.
Yep, it was destroyed. So there was the whole, I know that there is, what is it? The Ethiopian church?
Yes,
yeah, the Ethiopian
they do
church
claim to have the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, they claim to have it. In fact, what's his name? Thoughty2. He did a video on the Ark of the Covenant, and he was talking about the Ethiopian church still claims to have it. So, but then I hopped in the comments and I was like, listen, there's the section literally at the end of Kings where the Babylonians came in and destroyed all the gold in the temple. What was gold? The Ark of the Covenant. What was in the temple? The Ark of the Covenant. It was probably destroyed. It's very simple. It doesn't pop up again afterwards. It has been destroyed at this point.
Yes.
It's very simple. It's really that easy. So it's not doesn't take a genius to figure that out. So
yeah, but I recall the church where synagogue, I think. No, church, where the Ark of the Covenant was supposedly being held in Ethiopia was also attacked within the last couple of years. A whole bunch of people came and tried to ransack it. So I guess that's still going on out there.
That does seem to be a tradition of some folks. So yeah.
Yeah, so the interesting part here, I was wondering about the jar there. So the jar of manna and the staff of Aaron, which miraculously flowered to confirm his priesthood, were both supposed to be put in the inner sanctuary, but not specifically in the ark. A final embellishment of the biblical accounts is the note that the jar was golden. Exodus knows only of an ordinary jar, but Philo 2 mentions the jar of manna was of gold.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess they really love to do this. They just love to stretch points as far as they could be stretched.
Also, the mercy seat here. The phrase mercy seat originated with Martin Luther's German Bible translation. It derives from the etymology of kaporet, from kiper, to effect atonement. The term occurs elsewhere in the New Testament only in Romans 3:25, the sacrifice of atonement, and in 4th Maccabees, 1722, atoning sacrifice.
I don't think we've read 4th Maccabees yet.
No, we haven't.
Yeah.
We haven't even read 3rd Maccabees.
True.
So, yes, this mercy seat phrase is a relatively recent creation within Christianity.
So, verse 6. Now, when these things have been thus prepared, the priests are continually entering the outer tabernacle, performing the divine worship. But into the second, only the high priest enters once a year, not without taking blood, which he offers for himself for the sins of the people committed in ignorance.
Yes. This happens on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, even committing unintentionally. Though the meaning here is ambiguous. It's literally unknowingly. Possibly the author is conflating prescriptions for the Yom Kippur ritual in which all sins are being atoned with prescriptions for the various sin offerings listed in the early chapters of Leviticus, which include offerings designed to atone for sins unintentionally committed. See Leviticus 4:27, 5:14. It could mean that the priest's offering affects his own atonement and only sins of which the people are collectively or individually unaware, since people do not seek forgiveness for wrongs they do not know they have committed. Alternatively, sins committed unintentionally.
Yo, Paris with the $49.99.
Thank you.
Huge.
Paris.
Thank you, man.
Thank you
very much
much.
appreciated.
Thank
We
you.
really
Thank you
appreciate the
kindly.
continued support.
Yes.
It's very much appreciated. Thank you very much. Yay.
Yeah. Alternatively, sins committed unintentionally could refer to any sin committed by anyone who is genuinely repentant. In other words, the person did not act in order to sin, but rather the action taken resulted in a wrong being done.
And
the
Juju Dude.
Oh,
Again,
thank
with the
you,
5.
Juju Dude.
How did they evade the fate of Uzzah? Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Because if you touched it, because Uzzah, he touched it, right? And he just like fell over dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. How did they avoid that? That's a very good question. But yeah, I guess maybe it was okay since, well, he wasn't the high priest, right?
Yeah.
So maybe there's the wiggle room there.
Weird.
Send us some info after the show. All right. Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, man.
Yeah. But essentially, there's a number of ways that we could interpret this particular interpretation of Yom Kippur.
Right. Yeah. Interesting.
But it's not necessarily accurate.
Yeah. We can probably continue then.
Yeah.
Okay. So verse 8. The Holy Spirit is signifying this, that the way into the holy place has not yet been disclosed, while the outer tabernacle is still standing, which is a symbol for the time then present, according to which both gifts and sacrifices are offered, which cannot make the worshiper perfect in conscience, since they relate only to food and drink and various washings, regulations of the body imposed until a time of reformation.
So it seems like this, what the Spirit reveals is the lack of access to the true presence of God. Under the Old Covenant, there has not been a decisive revelation of the means of approach to God, the, quote, way into the sanctuary. The argument focuses on one aspect of the Old Testament's prescriptions, the exclusion of ordinary priests and laity from the inner part of the tabernacle, to which the ton hagion, so which part, to which of the holies, or to which the holies, as usual, refers. The access that the high priest has to the sacred realm does not signify its openness, but is only, as it were, the exception that proves the rule.
Now, what verses you just finished, Landon?
I just finished verse 10. That's why I'm
Wonderful.
pausing.
Wonderful.
With bated breath.
Yes.
There is quite a bit here.
The declaration that through the promise of Jeremiah 31 through 34, God implicitly finds fault with the old covenant order extends to animal sacrifices. These point forward to the total adequacy of the self-offering of Christ on behalf of God's people, which will be expounded positively in 11 through 28. Meanwhile, the middle section of the argument emphasizes that in spite of the elaborate cultic detail of the Old Covenant tabernacle or tent of meeting, the priestly offering remains incomplete, partial, unable to perfect the conscience of the worshiper, and provisional. The argument will be resumed in 10:1 through 5, where the climax of the argument portrays the effect of the Old Covenant sacrifices as debilitating reminders of sin year after year. It may be argued that the description of the details of the Jewish cultus in 9:1 through 10 does not correspond with what we know of Herod's temple. However, few regard this as significant, since the author is discussing not the first, second, or third temple, but the tabernacle as depicted in the Pentateuch. On supposed anomalies between Hebrews 9:2 through 4 and Numbers, there's a book by Atridge from 1989. In the statement concerning the high priest,
What year did you say?
1989.
Let's see when this was written.
Is that it?
It might be. Let's see if I can. Yes. What page is it?
236 through 238.
Oh yeah.
That's just the entire commentary.
That's right here. Yeah, the anomalies of Hebrews 9:2 through 4 and Numbers. It's a huge section on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But to summarize here, in the statement concerning the high priest, the reference to the Day of Atonement is unmistakable. The high priest alone was permitted to enter the inner sanctuary only once a year and then under strictly prescribed conditions. The writer specifies never without blood. The ritual presupposes a fundamental distinction between the two compartments within the sanctuary of the holy place and the holiest of most holy place, following the Hebrew idiom, Holy of Holies. In 9:1 through 10, our author denotes these by the term the first in the first one and the second, as respectively the holy and the most holy place. Thus, the lampstand, the table, the bread of the presence are located within the first compartment or holy place, while behind the second curtain of the Ark of the Covenant and the mercy seat that is within the second consecrated area, the holiest of holies. The series of partitions and entrances symbolize simultaneously the exclusive principle of divine holiness, literally that which is separate, and the inclusive principle of divine grace. Let us approach, Greek engizo. God has prescribed specific conditions on the basis of which he may be approached. This key model dominates the whole epistle or sermon. The Christian life is one of drawing near or approaching the holy God of grace. The Day of Atonement serves as a pointer and paradigm through the self-offering of the shed blood and priestly work of Christ. Thereby, he is the mediator of God's secure covenant promise. Under the new covenant, as Jeremiah 31:31 through 34 indicates in advance, the privilege of approach is no longer restricted to the high priest alone. All whom Christ represents as high priest may now enter the holy presence of God with Christ, since Christ entered once for all with his own blood. So, this is how we can view these verses, essentially.
I think we can
Okay.
continue.
Yep.
Verse 11. But when Christ appeared as a high priest of the good things to come, he entered through the greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with hands, that is to say, not of this creation, and not through the blood of goats and calves.
So
But
here's
through his own blood, he entered the holy place once and for all, having obtained eternal redemption.
So, in verse 11 there, Christ having arrived as high priest of the good things. Now, yours says yours implies that they have not come yet. But it looks like the Greek, it looks like it does imply that they have already come. So not the good things to come, but the good things that have already come. So
yes, and I also want to point out that Jesus here is not only the Paschal Lamb, but is also the Yom Kippur sacrifice.
yeah. So both the reading in the text and the variant reading, so of the good things to come, have good manuscript support, but the reading in the text, followed by most translations, appears to have better support since, of course, that being the good things that have come, appears to have better support since it is read by manuscripts of different and ancient text types. The presence of the expression, the good things to come in 10:1 seems to have influenced copyists here. If the variant reading is followed, the sense may be either as the high priest of all the blessings which were to come and which have come, or the good things which still lie in the future for believers. According to the first interpretation, the reference is to the good things which were coming from the point of view of those who lived in the period of the Old Testament. According to the second interpretation, the point of view is that of Christians looking forward to the second coming. But yeah, the idea either way is that the good stuff had already come, though. That is the actual Greek. Mm-hmm. It's part of the same genitive clause.
I won't have much commentary until about verse 15.
All right.
Okay. Verse what?
Until you get to verse 15.
Okay. So I'm on verse 13 right now. For if the blood of goats and bulls and ashes of the heifer, sprinkling those who have been defiled, sanctify cleansing of the flesh, how much more will the blood of Christ, through the eternal Spirit offered himself without blemish to God, cleanse your conscience of dead works to serve the living God?
Dead works to serve the living God.
Yes, you can see these dead works reference in chapter 6, verse 1. Apparently, this reference says dead works, activities that do not serve God.
Right. Well, it's not only activities that do not serve God, but okay. So we were just talking about the purification ritual here, right? Mm-hmm. About the cleansing of it. So if something is dead, it is ritually impure. Mm-hmm. So the fact that the dead works are going to be removed is a way for to become ritually pure.
Yes, and I guess the point is that the Yom Kippur sacrifice is not necessary because Jesus already achieved the goal of what sacrifice does,
right,
in being the ultimate sacrifice. So as a consequence, the ritual animal sacrifices that occur are not in service to God, and so they are dead works and ritually impure.
Right.
But, yep. Why don't you...
so verse 15.
Yes.
And for this reason, he is the mediator of the new covenant, in order that since death has taken place for the redemption and of the transgressions which were committed under the first covenant, those who have been called may receive the promise of the eternal inheritance.
Yeah, so good juicy stuff here. Yeah, once a death took place for the redemption of transgressions under the first covenant, those who have been called might receive the promise of the eternal inheritance. Wow. So at least we have a very, very obvious statement of this, of the sacrifice there, right? So this is, I've talked about it before on the show and videos about this idea of a corporate personality and someone dying for the sins of others, but you could only do that in the case of a sacrifice. But usually, of course, a human sacrifice would not be accepted. So this is where you need to have some semblance of divinity, right? Now, I go over this way more in my video on the suffering servant, but it is interesting that we have a direct claim to, okay, so that is to make up for the stuff from the old covenant, and now the new covenant stuff is different.
Yeah, and so you're about to get in through verse 22, actually. There's an argument here which is very, very disingenuous. So Paul here, the author's logic depends on the double meaning of the Greek diatheke as either covenant or will, in the sense of a last will and testament. Both a will and a covenant require a death to take effect. A blood sacrifice was a part of a ritual of making a covenant. Blood was an intrinsic element of ratifying the Mosaic covenant in Exodus 24. Christ's blood is similarly necessary to inaugurate a new covenant. Paul also makes use of the double meaning of diatheke in Galatians 3:15 through 18. So he's literally, like, in these upcoming verses, he is going to be depending upon the conflation of terminology because of how Greek works.
So I want to, well, yeah, it is, the fact is Greek is it lends itself to a lot of interpretation. So words have like similar meanings, but they can be used in a ton of different ways. So let me see.
Diatheke.
Okay, yeah. Diathekete. Yeah, okay. So there we go. Yeah, so one is, those are literally only two meanings. It's literally an arrangement between two parties or a covenant, or a disposition of property by will or a testament. So one of these, oh, wait. So, I mean, I can look into a different specific source. This only cites two. So essentially, like, the usage of it being a covenant was not a common one, is the thing. So that is interesting. It was not a common one. It was only, at least according to this, in terms of notable usages, it only had one notable usage before. But I am sure that there are more. This app is not like exhaustive or anything. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, it was at least less common than the other usage.
Yeah. Okay, so verse 16 to 22 is the remainder of this paragraph. Verse 16, for where a covenant is, there must be of necessity be the death of one who made it. Really?
Really?
Yes,
well, I mean, yeah, that is true because it's the will. Yeah, because it's the will. That's right, because it's the will. I forgot. They're conflating it. Man, I got to remember that that they're switching up terms here. That's fun.
Mm-hmm.
That really was my comment, not in the text. Mm-hmm. Verse 17, for the covenant is valid only when men are dead. For it is never in force while one who made it lives. Really?
Well, if they're conflating it with the last will and testament, yeah, they got to be dead for it to take effect.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, even the first covenant was not inaugurated without blood. For when every commandment had been spoken by Moses to the people according to the law, he took the blood of the calves and goats and water and scarlet wool and the hyssop and sprinkled both the book itself and all the people, saying, this is the blood of the covenant which God has commanded you. For in the same way he sprinkled both the tabernacle and the vessels of the mystery with the blood, and according to the law, one may almost say all things have been cleansed with blood, and without shedding of the blood, there is no forgiveness.
Yeah, so this, we're actually going to be going over this part of Exodus. I don't know if it probably won't be this upcoming blasphemous Bible, but maybe the one after that. But it's coming up, so we're like right there.
Now, Second Temple and Rabbinic Judaism's various replacements from supporting the poor to prayer, charity, and repentance, to the death of innocent school children or the righteous, to the claim in Avot de Rabbi Nathan that a sage sits and expounds to the congregation scripture accounts
Here's the thing,
to him as though he had offered up fat and blood at the altar. So there are differing views on this forgiveness of sin without shedding blood. And if you're a truly wise person, you can just expound wisdom, and that satisfies it, according to this rabbi.
Wow.
Yeah. It's funny that the author here is
Rabbi Natan, not Nathan.
It's funny that the author here is relying so much on this conflation. That he basically defines this new theology into existence.
Yes. Isn't it incredible that like outright fallacious thinking is taken so seriously by Christians?
Yeah, it is kind of nuts. Now, like I said, like I'm sure it has like more than just the one other occasion of this usage, but still, like the understanding of covenant that they had before in the Old Testament is not the same as the way that the same word is being used here.
Right.
Yeah.
Not at all.
I mean, to be fair, this is stuff that Paul spews forward, and Paul is appears to be one of those religious zealots who started off with one zealotry, had a conversion, and is expounding more zealotry. The fact that a lot of Christians give this Paul person any credence is a probably condemnation of their theology, but that's my opinion. Therefore, verse 23, it is necessary for the copies of these things in heaven be cleansed with these, but heavenly things themselves with much better sacrifices than these. For Christ did not enter a holy place made with hands, a mere copy of the true one, but heaven itself now do appear in the presence of God for us. Nor was it that he should offer himself often, as the high priest enters the holy place year by year with the blood not of his own.
So
otherwise, he would have needed to suffer often since the foundation of the world, but now once a consummation, he has manifested and put away sin by the sacrifice of himself.
So I want to note on the sketches of heavenly things, a shorthand way to refer to the earthly tabernacle and its accoutrements. These sketches might be better translated copies or patterns. The author relies on Plato's idea of the ideal forms and imperfect copies of those forms. The heavenly things here's meaning is unclear. Perhaps the world is cleansed from the cosmic force of sin, or that the consciences of worshipers have been purified. It is unclear. But yeah, the author here is again depending on a very Greek understanding, and I think because there was definitely a reference to Republic earlier with the allegory of the cave.
Sure.
And here,
It was very similar to that.
Yeah, and here it depends on a Platonic conception of metaphysics, which I guess carries over into the Aristotelian tradition too. But so it's very clear that this author is like super Greek, very much so following Greek customs.
Yeah, easily. And the thing is, I just want to point out that this text, so Hebrews itself, is a very high form of Greek. This is one of the harder Greek texts in the New Testament. Mm-hmm. So it's clear that this guy was just very, very good at Greek.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, my text sort of ascribes this to Paul, but I don't think that is accepted.
Nah, it's
widely.
not.
And it doesn't have say the textual languages. However, certainly Paul himself would probably not have objected too much to some of this.
For some of it, definitely he would not have. But I think for some other stuff that we may have pointed out a few things in the readings for this that Paul would have that he would have objected to.
Well, there's no mention in Paul of Melchizedek.
Well, right, yeah, that's true.
That's true. So verse 27. And so much as it is appointed for men to die once, and after comes the judgment, so Christ also, having been offered once to bear the sins of many, shall appear a second time, and shall not to bear sin, but to those who eagerly await him for salvation.
Well, isn't that special? And you must ask, salvation from what? Well, unfortunately, the answer to that
Is their God.
is their God.
Yeah. Or they say, from the depths of hell, but
Which is
really
made
their
by
God.
their God.
Yeah, it was.
So, what do we think of the readings for today?
Interesting theological stuff, interesting textual stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Melchizedek stuff's fun.
Yeah.
It's very, very anti-Jewish.
Yeah, it really is.
I could see this being used as justification for a lot of bad things that have been done.
Yeah, I mean, certainly not explicitly, do bad things to Jews or anything.
Yeah, it's not like that, but it could be used by propagandists.
Even though the idea that this new covenant is coming to the house of Israel is like, you wouldn't be able to sit at that table anyways. But anyways, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for helping us win, but you're not allowed to join us.
Yep.
Yeah, right,
Yep. It's like Moses, not allowed to go into the promised land.
True.
Yep. Because he screwed up by hitting a rock.
Yeah, at the wrong time. Yeah, he hit one rock and that was fine, but the second rock
What
didn't
a
hit
book.
that rock.
What
Everything
the
after
hell is going through these people's heads?
Dude, I don't know.
Like, this guy sacrifices everything, but then he can't go past a national border because he hit a rock with a stick.
Yeah.
What?
Everything after Acts is boring. A lot of it is. That's
We're
certainly
getting
true.
to Revelation.
Once we get to
eventually.
Revelation, it'll be great. It'll be the best. Revelation is fantastic.
But hey, everyone, if you enjoyed the stream today, not only like, comment, and subscribe, but you should check us out on Patreon. Landon here is a patron, and if you were a patron, you could be on the show too.
Yes, and I'm actually getting getting another T-shirt designed, right? So I still have to send a T-shirt out to Landon and to Jay $. So
I need to know,
those
are
still
we
being
ever
designed.
getting those emotes?
Yeah, I was asking.
that I should ask about that actually. But yes, that should still be in the plan. Though.
You can access those emotes by becoming a member. We have a few. Oh, hands.
Yeah. Hands. Yeah. We'll get better ones, more unique ones.
Yeah.
So
beyond that, we have lots of things on the Patreon, but we also have
excuse me, Jay $. What do you mean you want another shit? Get out of here, you. What a prick.
we also have the Amazon wish list. It's full of books. You can buy us books. We also have the live chat donations, right?
Yeah,
people have been using that,
so really appreciate it.
which is great. We appreciate it. And how else can they support us?
I think you shield basically everything.
Facebook, Twitter, Discord.
Discord, that's right. The link is in the description, and you can do ! Discord in the chat right now if you want. If you want to pop up, assuming Nightbot works.
Yeah, you should do that.
But yeah,
somewhere.
Klaus, so if you become a channel member, you get access to emotes like the ones that Ryan posted above. So those are the only ones we have right now. But we are getting actual good. We're gonna get actual good ones designed. Yeah. Those are like temporary placeholders. So
we've been saying that for a while.
We have been.
Hey, we delivered on the alchemy video years afterwards.
That's true. That is true.
And it was such a satisfying.
It was awesome.
delivery.
Hey, listen, we did it.
We did it.
We did it.
We turned silver to gold.
It was right there, guys.
Was real.
I don't know. No one better complain.
We just can't do it again because the mystery box broke.
Yeah, it was really sad. It was one time use.
Yeah, one time. Anyways, Landon, do you want to let the people know what you've been doing? What's coming up for you?
Well, I've been in the land slightly down under, observing a total solar eclipse of 1 minute 11.2 seconds. Not that I'm counting, but I am. And coming up, there are some interesting events, such as on June 2nd on Cheshire Channel, we will have at 1 p.m. Pacific, a volcano show where we're going to talk about what's happening or not happening at the Kilo volcano in Hawaii and volcanoes in general. I will point out that Dapper Dino, a really interesting YouTuber, is having his 10,000 subscriber show on June 3rd at starting at noon Pacific and going for who knows long. I might be involved in that. Looking forward there, there's more things. Such as I'm low energy video. I'm going to be on his show on June 15th at 13:30 Pacific. And there is a unnamed tavern thing showing up, as well as a actually what it is they're making me do commentary on the Ken Ham versus Bill Nye debate.
Oh boy.
And that is a special thing because they're special. This debate is happening the reactions. The second reaction on June 7th at 1:30 p.m. Pacific. So those are various things that I'm involved with. Sea contest coding, trying to put a telescope on the moon, and other things like that. What's up with you folks?
I am glad that I finished the Akhenaten video. People seem to like it. It got, a lot more views than some of the other stuff we've been posting recently.
How many views did it get?
It's up to like 800 now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Better than the other stuff.
And why are we getting stunted by YouTube?
I don't know. But it should be more is the thing. But
should be way more.
I think I did a good job on that. And yes, thank you, Ryan. Thank you. So hopefully that gets, more traction as time goes on. But either way, if you haven't seen that, you should, because it's a real deep dive into Akhenaten.
Maybe we should just go full on like clickbaity, front page of YouTube.
I don't really want to. That sounds so scummy.
Diversify. Do more.
Hey, are you calling Mr. Beast scummy?
No. He does actually do the things that are in the videos.
Well, that's what we have to do.
Yeah, I guess.
Do the things in the videos.
Well, yeah.
How could we not?
Yeah, anyways, he does the thing that's in the title in the video. Anyways, thank you everyone for joining us. We actually had up to 23 viewers today?
Yeah, we had quite a few.
Pretty huge. So thank you everyone for joining.
And thank you all.
And we will see you on Friday, probably, because I will probably feel okay.